So when I started college, I got pulled into one of the biggest traps ever. And I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to do this anymore, but when I was in college, it was a thing. I was walking through the union of campus and came across a credit card table. And the sales guy was pretty awesome, right? Because I was like sold in a heartbeat as to why an 18-year-old needed a credit card, and I got one. And before I realized it, I had racked up debt. And I couldn't pay it back. The bill came in and I was like, ruh-roh, what am I going to do? So what did I do? I got a job. I got a job for the sole purpose of paying off the debt I had racked up. And I worked, waiting tables to try to pay off that stupid credit card. Oh, did I say credit card? Because it's more like credit cards. Because, you know, when you go to like a store, they're like, you know, you'd save 10% if you signed up for a credit card with us today. And I was like, sold! You know, there was always some deal as to why you should get a credit card with them, and I fell for every single one of them. And before I knew it, I was in credit card debt up to my eyeballs. And so I kept working, trying to pay it off, but I never could pay off my credit card debt. I could never get ahead of it. Do you know why? I kept spending. It didn't stop me. The bills didn't stop me from continuing to use my credit cards. And so every month would come in and I would pay, here's the kicker, the minimum due, right? But if you go back and look at your interest rate, a lot of times that it like nullifies your minimum due. And so it's a trap, because then you never get out of what? Credit card debt. And it was a really scary and stressful time for me as a teenager who wanted to be independent, who couldn't wait to get out of mom and dad's house, to be on my own, to make my own decisions, to be the big girl, right? And here I was struggling with credit card debt. And it was because there was something I always wanted. There was clothes, there was shoes, there was bar hopping, there was dinner with friends, there was getting nails done. Y'all, it's a horrible cycle. It is a horrible cycle, and I couldn't find my way out of it because I was living above my means. And it is so easy for us to do. I had multiple major credit cards, to store credit cards, and I was a sucker for that buy now, pay later scheme that still goes on today. It's a scam, by the way. Did you know that? It's a scam. Because when you look at the amount of interest you end up paying, man, it's like the candy that I was trying to convince one of the kids to buy, right? I think, unfortunately, we are groomed to live in debt, and it's no wonder that people struggle to make ends meet. And there's two kinds of debt I want us to talk about this morning. The first I've already mentioned is that consumer debt, or that credit card debt. And have you ever considered the relationship between the money exchangers we read about in the Bible that Jesus got really mad at and flipped the tables over, to the banks and them lending us money? Banks charge us like 14.92% interest on our loans and our credit cards and stuff. How much interest do you get back on your savings account? Yeah. That's not fair. That is not fair at all. The second kind of debt I want to talk about is investment debt. And this one is a lot harder to get around. And that is our mortgage notes, our car notes. They're a lot harder to avoid. And I don't know about y'all, but there was no way that Gavin and I could have purchased a car, let alone our home, with cash up front. It just wasn't going to happen, right? And so there is sometimes debt that we just can't avoid. Sometimes debt is necessary. But the Bible advises us that it should be avoided at all costs and whenever possible. So how do we do it? How do we avoid debt? Mike Slaughter suggests that when you go buy a car, buy one that is 1 to 3 years old, and then save the cash before buying the next one. And this is actually a pretty feasible thing to try to obtain, right? Instead of having to buy the brand new $40,000, $50,000 car, you buy something a little more in your means, a few years older, so it's not as expensive. And then you save. You save and save and save so you can eventually buy the car you want and not be stuck with this big car note. Another option would be, once you've paid off your car, you take that car note that you have been paying and you throw it in savings, and you keep saving, right? You don't stop paying that car note kind of, because you keep throwing it in savings. And the car that you are in, you run it out until it's dead. And this was a hard one, I think, for Gavin to understand for me, because one of my favorite cars I ever had was a Jeep Cherokee, and we had paid it off, and he's like, let's get a new car. And I'm like, why? We don't have a car note anymore. And I ran that car till it was dead. I mean, like dead. It was actually in 2010 when I killed it dead. And I didn't want to get rid of it because I had no car note, right? And I really loved the car, but it wouldn't start anymore, and the cost to get it fixed was, not worth doing. And so instead of us being smart, and during that time that we weren't paying for a Jeep car note anymore and putting that in savings, we just spent that on whatever, right? And here we were again with another car note. I called that car the Tank. It was the Tahoe that I didn't want, but my husband felt we needed. And I was so happy when we finally got rid of that car. But house notes, they're not exactly as easy, are they? Especially nowadays, right? Houses are just crazy expensive. When I go and read about how much houses cost, like back when our parents were purchasing houses, it was nothing compared to what it is now. And you could say, oh no, but you gotta throw in inflation. Do you know how much inflation has jumped since our parents buying houses to now? It's like crazy. It's crazy. It's unreal. Society has made it so we are incapable of doing things without going into debt. So what do we do? What do we do? Because we know that debt is unavoidable, right? It is just going to happen. And so the need arises for us to develop a strategic plan to get out of debt as soon as possible. So Proverbs 22:7 says, the wealthy rule over the poor. A borrower is a slave to the lender. How many of y'all have felt a slave to your debt? That house note comes in every month and I'm just like, oh, why did we buy this house? Meaning debt creates bondage, right? We are now like chained to our debt, and it drains us sometimes. We go to work today to pay for yesterday's purchases. We go to work today to pay for yesterday's purchases. It's kind of hard to save for the future when you are still paying for the past. I have some advice for our parents here who have kids in college. Don't let them get a credit card. Don't do it. Don't let them get a credit card. Apparently now you have to co-sign for those things, right? The parents have to co-sign for the kids to get a credit card. And so my advice is, if there's something they truly, truly need and you have the money, get it for them right now. Please, get it for them right now. And teach your kids that what they should do instead is finish college and get a job. And teach them the importance of making the money first before they go out and purchase the things that they want. And I think that's a hard cycle for us to break, but it is possible for us to do it. For us to teach our kids the importance of how we spend our money and how we choose to spend our money, because then they're going to end up just like me. And you'd be like, oh, but Pastor Kelly, you're a pastor, and that's great. I want them to be just like you. No, you don't. No, you don't. You want them to be better than me. Not just like me. Better than me. Let them learn from our mistakes. We should do whatever we have to do to keep ourselves and our families out of debt. Don't take out a loan if you have no means or way of paying it back. Deuteronomy 15:1 tells us every 7th year you must cancel all your debts. I cannot imagine having a conversation with Gavin right now saying, hey babe, we're going to pay off our house note in 7 years. Because I look at like that whole 15 mortgage note thing and I'm like, yeah, right. 15 years. Now you want me to cut that in half to 7? How would we do that? But what would it look like if we strive to get as close to 7 years as possible? God taught us these principles in the Bible for a reason. In today's scripture, it is a lesson that we don't have to be burdened and buried under our debt, under our financial worries. He can and He will help us get ahead of the game. But this means that we have to apply God's directives for financial freedom. And this means that we can't follow those shiny gods that are so tempting for us to follow. These idols that I have talked about, idols of materialism, of shoes, of purses, of clothes, of hunting supplies, of the bigger and better electronics and technology and TV, all those things, all the advertisement industry has thrown at us that we need. You need this new TV. You need this new car. You need the bigger house, because if you have the bigger house, you can have more company over. And if you have more company over, then you're like the awesome friend that everybody wants. But of course, when you get that bigger house, you need to fill it with what? Stuff. And it seems like every year your stuff is no longer cool anymore, and you have to buy the new stuff, and you have to update it. The advertisement industry has, since it really boomed in 1920, it's like the boom of the advertisement industry to now. If you look at the percentage of how much they spend on advertising now, it's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Not in the millions, but in the billions that they spend to convince us that what we have is not good enough. Every commercial that you look at tells you that what you have is not good enough, and tempts you to go buy their new, better thing. And have you noticed that our washers and our dryers and our refrigerators and our microwaves and our stoves, they don't last anymore, right? They all have warranty, right? And I kid you not, the day after that warranty expires, it breaks. Who has experienced that? And I remember going over to my grandparents' house, right, with these ancient appliances that they had for 50 years. They didn't break. Well, guess what? They don't make anybody money. They don't make any money if they make something that doesn't break. Isn't that scary? That's what society has created, and we have fallen right into that trap. We decide we have to keep up with the Joneses, right? We see something somebody else wants, we're like, ooh, I want that. That's like George's famous line. Ooh, I want that. Hey, Mom, I was over at Lou's house, and we were playing the Wii, and they had this really cool game, and I want that. Hey, Mom, everybody in school has a cell phone now. I want that. Hey, babe, that TV that we have, it's really old and it's really heavy and it still works, but now they have like the really cool flat screen TVs that like can go on your wall, and we can get rid of the entertainment center, and then we'll have all this extra room in the living room. I want that. And y'all, I am just as guilty, right? I am just as guilty, because every time I pass a shoe, I say, I want that. And it doesn't stop with shoes. I harp a lot on the shoes because they're my favorite, but it's clothes and it's purses and it's all that other girly stuff, right? I want that. Society, the advertisement industry, it has groomed us to be consumers and spenders. And we are no longer happy with what we have. And when we fall in those traps, we fall into that debt trap. And it's really scary because it's hard to get out of once you find yourself there. So how do we get out of it? How do we get out of that debt? Proverbs 12:11 says, "Those who work the land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense." Could that apply to you? Because it kind of applies to me. When we chase the fantasy of keeping up with the Joneses, the newer, the bigger, the better things, we lose sight of the gift of work. And we begin to worship the gift of money above all else. We become workaholics in order to obtain more while we continue to rack up debt. And we forget to serve the blessing, which is God's gift of work, and instead serve the source. Have you ever considered work a blessing? If not, I want you to think about the person who doesn't have a job. The person who is recently laid off and now has no means of providing support for their family anymore. Work is a gift. It is a blessing from God, and we were groomed to work. If you check back in Genesis, God had Adam and Eve what? Take care of the animals. He named them and he took care of them, and then he commanded us to take care of the earth and all of his creation. God groomed us to work, but I think what has happened is we've become obsessed with the money we get from working and what that money can get us, and we have forgotten what a blessing God's gift of work is to us. So how do we dig ourselves out of the hole? The first thing is to stop living above our means. You have to stop living above your means. And I realized I had to stop eating out all the time. I had to stop seeing every movie as soon as it hit theaters. I had to stop buying the new pair of shoes that I so desperately needed. I wish I could say that concept hit me in college or right after I graduated college, but it was like a decade later that light bulb finally went off. Living above my means. And instead of spending a fortune for our family to go to the movies on Friday night to see that brand new movie that just came out, we wait. We wait for it to either come on DVD or we wait for it to come on demand. Because we can rent it for $4.99, right? I mean, how much is it to go see a movie now? It's like ridiculous, right? And I want to tell you who's really making a profit. Movie theaters and selling popcorn. It is ridiculous. And our family movie nights are at home with store-bought or Cub Scout bought popcorn. And our family game nights aren't out somewhere purchasing a bunch of games that we can go play individually to earn tickets somewhere, but at a table playing a board game together. We have so much fun playing family games together, so much laughter. So much laughter. And it's much cheaper for a bunch of friends to get together and spend the evening at someone's house barbecuing than it is to go out and socialize at a restaurant. So much cheaper. And if you do decide to drink, you're already at home, or you can spend the night where you are. So much safer. But some of my favorite memories are when Gavin and I would have our friends over to hang out and play card games. And we would do it all night long. We would gather like at 6, and one of us would cook, and then we would get out our card games or our board games, and we would just laugh and laugh and laugh. And some of my favorite inside jokes with my friends have happened through those games, that we can just look at one another and say lemonade. And everybody laughs, and everybody else is going, what's so funny about lemonade? Great, great memories. But the second thing we need to do after we decide to stop living above our means is to create a spending plan. And a spending plan sets safe limits financially. I have a friend that part of her spending plan each week is to visit the ATM, and she takes out a certain amount of cash each week, and that is all she's allowed to spend on frivolous things. I told y'all before, my mom likes to gamble, but she keeps it separate from her financial responsibilities. It's part of her spending plan, and she has a set amount that she will bring with her and doesn't allow herself to spend more than she has planned. A budget is a fundamental tool that enables us to control our money so that it doesn't control us. A spending plan for how we allocate our financial resources. When we decide to do these two things, it allows us to face reality. We avoid waste. We keep our values and our priorities in the forefront, and eventually it will lead us to financial freedom. But we have to stick to it. And we can't allow temptation to take over. And it is through these means that we'll be financially freed up from the burdens of debt. And then we're going to say, Lord, you have blessed me greatly. I am no longer consumed by the thought of money and working to get more money and money to get the things I want. Financial freedom. So what is our bottom line this morning? I want us to be purposeful. We work to serve God. We work to provide for ourselves and those dependent on us. But we have to be grateful. Remember, our value is not measured by what we earn or do, or what we have in our home, or how big our home is, or how new our car is, or those new pair of shoes that we really want, but by who we are. Beloved sons and daughters of God. Will you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we know temptation is real. We read about it in the Bible. Your Son himself was tempted. And I feel as if those temptations are stronger and stronger every day. We face those advertisements. We are groomed to believe that what we have isn't enough and it isn't good enough, and that we should always strive for the bigger and better things. But Lord, we come to you today humbled and reminded that you are all that we need, that you provide for us all that we need to sustain life. Lord, continue to guide us and remind us to be better stewards of our money so that we are better equipped to live our life, to teach our children, and to support this church. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. I'd like to invite forward those who are assisting with offering this morning. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we have the opportunity to recognize the greatest of gifts, your Son, Jesus Christ. We have the opportunity to recognize your blessings upon us, the blessings of work, the gift of work. Lord, help us to guide us so that we can take that gift, that we can take those blessings and pass them on to this church so that this church is equipped and enabled to continue to do your ministry. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
see you shaking your head